Hi, everyone. This is Lee Carroll. I have a message, and this one here for you is being delivered approximately 2.5 months after my heart operation. Well, I have something to tell you. I'm back. I'm back. I'm not just back. I'm probably stronger with more energy than any of you have seen me in the last year or so. As many of you know, on April 4 of this year, 2023, I underwent open heart surgery for 3 serious issues. I needed major heart repair on a valve. I had a hole in my heart, which, by the way, is the same issue that my father died of many years ago. And I had a bypass, all 3 of them at the same time. I want to tell you this story in a way you might not expect to hear, and also give you some information and perspectives that perhaps will help some of you who are facing surgery of any kind. So let's segment this into parts. The first part I want to call Busting the Protocol. So, I want to share a decision I made that went against the protocol for anyone who is in the public eye. Now, the public eye, well, it's like I would define it as any known speaker, perhaps a politician, anyone who may have had any marginal exposure with the public. That's the public eye. There's a very old energy idea, an unspoken rule, in fact, it's even alive today, that says if there is a medical issue, keep it a secret. This unspoken rule, and the reason for it, is this. If they think you're sick or injured, or there's anything wrong with you, you'll lose popularity, income status, you name it. And you'll be seen as weak and lose your standing. Now, this is this old energy idea. Honestly, you can see this policy in history. It's all over the place. We have 2 famous presidents it happened to. FDR was in a wheelchair, and everybody in Congress knew he couldn't walk. I think it was polio, as I can remember. But the public didn't, because in those days there was no internet. They didn't take pictures of him because he didn't want them to in a wheelchair. So he kept it a secret from the public for 8 years, or almost 8. And then, or more actually, President Kennedy. How many of you knew he wore a back brace? He was almost always in pain. We didn't know these things until later, until they came out. If you're sick, keep it a secret. As well as, some movie stars, perhaps, in the last possible moment, you reveal they were dying from something. You never know they had it. All right. So the advice from all those marketing experts in the past is, don't let them know you have a problem. I decided right up front that I was going to bust that protocol. By the way, against advice from some others. Why? Because I believe in prayer and the energy of healing. And what happens when thousands of people are focused on one person? So I made a video immediately to tell as many as I could what was happening. It was seen on my email list groups. News was all over Facebook. I know a lot of you watching this didn't see it, but trust me, it was a full disclosure that I was headed for surgery, and I needed your prayers. I needed you and your support. With a resource like this, I would have been an idiot to keep it quiet and miss out on all your help. So, against the advice of the way it should be done, the mold was set for what I wanted to do. The result, I'm going to share that with you in just a moment. Okay, here's the second part. I'm going to call this the elephant under the table. We just had a Sedona Light conference in June. And in that conference, Krein gave a channeling that revealed some personal things about me to an audience of over 500 people. These are things I never would have revealed myself. Now, Krein does this sometimes in channel. So I'll let you know these things as well, since, of course, they're now public. Oh, by the way, those audios of channelings are available on krein.com/free audio, and I eventually get around to it. I think it should be there soon, if it's not already when you read this or hear this too. And you can hear Krein say this for yourself. After the diagnosis of my heart issue, and even after this video I made telling everybody I needed surgery, it got worse. More tests were performed, revealing that there was so much wrong that even my surgeon said, and I quote, "We normally don't do this much on a person your age." Thanks a lot, surgeon. How do you tell a wonderful mainstream heart surgeon that my chronological age is not the age of my body? At least it's not what my body recognizes as my age. Tests revealed that my body sees me as about 10 years younger than I am. How is that possible, you might ask? Because I do the things recommended on my online healing courses, my programs for youthing, affirmations, supplements, healthy eating styles, consciousness expectations, gratitude, and more. It really works, folks. It really does. But the issue is this: how do I come before all of you, thousands, who know me from my healing program, and tell you I'm about to have major surgery? Oh, that's almost a violation of everything I teach. Oh, what a quandary. Well, in that channel in Sedona, Cryan told everybody of this issue of mine and revealed to everyone something personal I really didn't want any of you to know. This is what Cryan told everybody. I'm not happy about this. Years ago, I was told of a heart murmur, of a leaking valve, and an enlarged heart. I knew it. Yep, I knew it. I learned this right in the cardiologist's office. So, what are you going to say about that? I also knew my father had died from this very thing. So what's the smartest, most logical thing I could do at that point? Well, of course, I do more tests, find out exactly what's wrong, and start a healing protocol to change it. All the things that I know. So, of course, I canceled upcoming appointments with a cardiologist. I went into full denial, and I never went back. Oh, gosh. I'm not proud of this, folks. It was really stupid. I know it was, but this is what I did. Cryan's message is Sedona was clear. And here's what he said about operations in general, emergencies in general. If you're in an auto accident and you have a major injury, they don't rush you home to pray and to give you herbs and a diet. The issue is immediate, and medical expertise is needed. Cryan's indicated that modern medicine and the technology involved today is appropriate for all of us. You got that? Now, don't write me letters. He also mentioned that it's the inappropriate big pharma and some of the hospital scenarios that are totally out of integrity, which are the old energy problem. And those are the things that the common themes I think that Cryan has talked about for a long time. In other words, big money and real healing often conflict. But the dedicated doctors and the technology they use is very appropriate for many of us, especially in an emergency. If it were not for this technology that I just told you about and expertise that I'm talking about now, I'd be blind. Do you know that? None of the Cryan books would ever have been written. I wouldn't be standing in front of you now. It's taken over 7 surgeries on my eyes over many years, occasionally to correct and stabilize issues that would have caused this blindness. You might say, thanks to the talent, the knowledge of these dedicated doctors and the technology they used, Cryan is here today. When the retinas both pull away, as mine did, and they tell you have to replace the vitreous in your eye, it needs to be removed, and your lenses need to be changed, they don't send you home to pray. They operate. And I'm so glad they did. I am so glad they did. So grateful to all of them today. And some of them we've lost and they've passed on, but they're listening right now. Thank you for what you gave me then. Within the Sedona channel that Cryan gave, he dropped the bomb, my private information. And here's a quote from Cryan, from that channel. Lee, if you had started working on your heart issues years ago when we gave you the signal to, you could have skipped all of this. Oh boy. So, Spirit had given me this information, and I had ignored it. And now everyone knew it. These are not my favorite channeling times with Cryan, folks. Let's stop for a moment. I want you to know, is there any real evidence that you can repair a heart issue like I had, like this, with alternate methods? Cryan said if I'd started early, the answer was yes. I'm going to tell you yes, absolutely. I have seen this personally. I have friends who have experienced this, miracles with their heart, with leaking valves, enlarged hearts. It takes time, dedication, belief. But yes, I'd waited and waited. Now it was an emergency. So back to what happened after my diagnosis, I asked Cryan in the shower. That's where I talked to Cryan. And the answer was quick and loving. Tell everyone what's happening and ask them to hold the energy of healing and love for you. If you do this, Lee, you'll have a miracle moment. The rest is history. Listen, the story gets better and better. The results, I'm back. I'm really back. You know, the insurance companies watch those who are using the policies for expensive surgeries like mine, very expensive. They assign medical professionals to check you out at various times in your recovery. They did that for me. What these professionals told us was my situation was one of the strongest recoveries they had ever seen. 9 days after the actual surgery and 1 day from the returning from the hospital, a male nurse came to my home to help me with my walker, the walker that I had received from the hospital. Now, the walker was a mandatory piece of equipment for me to have. I never used it, of course. I gave it away quickly. It simply wasn't needed, never was. I think I shocked him. I was up and walking around, and I wanted to go answer the door when he came, but Monica wouldn't let me. Dang. I proceeded to go upstairs with him. I live in a 2-story home, and I led the way. He followed, watching me closely. It was so different from what he had experienced before that he told Monica and I that he was ready to sign me off from his required visits from the insurance company. But he'd never seen this kind of recovery before, and he didn't know if legally it was even possible for him to sign off due to the insurance rules. So he came back later and verified I was still there and still okay, and I signed a paper and he left. Prayer works. It's above and beyond what was ever expected, even by me. Prayer works. All of your energies combined made a tremendous difference from me. How can I say thank you to that other than a video where I say thank you? This is my miracle moment. And I'm so grateful to all of you who participated. I really am. But wait, there's more. I'd love to say that. Here is the third concept. Control over your body. I want to tell you about the advice I received from Cryon to prepare for this very invasive surgery. Invasive surgery. After all, they cut open the chest, they stop your heart for an hour. While it stopped, they do all kinds of things. Then they hope the heart stops again. It normally does. The operation lasts about 3 hours. That's pretty invasive. So is there anything I could do to help with this? I mean, I'm in deep anesthesia during all that time, so what do? Cryon gave me a new concept, one that I had not heard before, and I want to share it. I think it really made a difference. First, the premise. For many years now, my message from Cryon has been that human consciousness is powerful. And it may very well eventually be included as energy on the planet, in physics even. It's powerful, measurable. He said that someday we'll be able to measure it even with instruments, and even have physicists have rules for the way it behaves. It's going to be energy. That's how profound it is. Consciousness is most powerful, however, right now, when it's used within our own bodies, with our own consciousness. Now, our subconsciousness is also part of the same scenario. What we believe and what we've been told plays into this profound body scenario with life and health very, very seriously. Now, if you look at spontaneous remission, for example, and my favorite, the placebo effect, where people have a healing from a sugar pill just because they believe it'll work, is great examples of the power of consciousness over disease in the body. These are examples of how the body can use consciousness and the subconscious to create what some call miracles, because that's the way they look. We believe it's not miraculous at all, but a normal function to being healthy in our bodies, because we use consciousness. We use affirmations that shape consciousness. This is what we do. So the power of thought and things like affirmations, reframing is another word, and helps the subconscious to unlearn things, reprogram it. This is the things we've taught for years. But apart from visualizing a benevolent outcome for myself, a valuable thing, what else can I do? Cryon gave the answer. The cells in the body are part of a system we all have that is a very, very, very strong survival instinct system. Survival instinct. Almost all of our chemistry works this way. if there is an invader of any kind, even a microbe, the cells in the body rise up to meet it. You know this. You might say that it's the prime directive of the human body is to survive. Crying clearly, show me this. When they start the operation, and they do that very long incision, it's a red alert to every cell in my body, not just the ones in my chest, everyone. I'd never thought of that. I really didn't. So my entire body is going to fight off an invasion like this. Chemistry will be released all over the body. The shock of it all will be felt at a whole body level, and the whole body will react. I know this. Ask a doctor. What if I change that? You know, I'm out for the count, as they say. I'm anesthesiized. Anesthesiized. That's not even a word. But you know what I mean? I'm asleep. What can I do that I haven't already done? So, Brian told me what to say to my body, when I should start saying it, and it was different from anything I was ever taught or thought it might be. Brian said, rewrite the survival code just for a little while. I was told to talk to my body out loud starting 2 weeks before the surgery. My dialogue, it went like this. Dear cells of my body, I love you. Dear body that I am in control of, listen up. Dear body, our survival is being enhanced soon, and the seeming invasion that's coming is not an invasion at all. It is a benevolent intervention. Dear body, get ready for the benevolent intervention. Body, listen up. Welcome the invader. Love it, and do not resist it. I have given permission for this, body. Do not resist. How about that? Does it work? Oh, sure did. I'm absolutely convinced that this helped a great deal in my recovery. Even 2 days after the surgery, when all the drugs had worn off, I was waking up all times of day and night in gratitude, celebration, raising my arms as much as I could, thanking the body for listening to me and following instructions. I knew I had, since I was feeling stronger. I knew it worked. I was eating well, sleeping great. I mean, the nurses would come in to wake me up, and they said, there's nobody who sleeps this well after this surgery. And I said, well, I am. And there was no pain. I couldn't believe that. When they got me up in another day or so to walk, I love that physical therapy. Those cardio guys are great. It was their job to wake me up and get me to walk. So it's like they celebrated every step. And I was wanting to go a little too fast or a little too far. I asked them to show me the safe way to climb stairs. And they said, well, that's really not in the program yet, but yeah, sure. So I had them in my home, so they showed me. We spent a lot of time in the hospital stairwell, and we loved it. Listen, if any of you are facing surgery by necessity, don't beat yourself up that you couldn't do it by alternate methods. Perhaps it's actually a fast track for you, so you can quickly go into another more important part of your life. You can't second guess the plan of Spirit. You know, I put mine off. I shouldn't have, but I did. But when I did, even in my stupidity of putting it off, and when it was emergency, when I had to do it, I got so much help. If you have a doctor who tells you that you may be in danger without surgery, take it as a signal from Spirit that you waited too long, like I did, and it's an unexpected emergency. An emergency that you couldn't have worked with in time or anywhere else, almost like the traffic accident Klein spoke of. I was led to the best cardiologist, and then the best surgeon for this heart repair, and then a wonderful hospital who treated me very, very well. I checked later and realized that this was very special guidance. This is the way Spirit guides us, speaks to us, answers our prayers, answers your prayers. Then, if you are led to have surgery of any kind, see if my experience and what I was told can help you. Rewind. Listen again to what I said to my cells, and start the process of saying, welcome the invader. Do not resist. Do not resist. Then tell all of your lightworker friends about what you are facing. Don't keep it a secret, and ask for healing energy to come your way. We're all here to help each other, folks, truly. Just like you all helped me. I'm back. I'm Lee 2.0, and I'm ready for years of excursions, conference events, a lot of courses, online programs, and crime channeling. Thank you so much for everything you've done for me. This is my miracle moment.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Cryon of Magnetic Service. This is the channel in the land of Egypt, starting to visit some of the most magnificent structures that the Egyptians have created. Dear ones, amongst the pillars of this great structure. When we speak of the ancients of Egypt, we speak about the pure times. When we speak about the elegance of what they did or what they knew or what they believed, we speak of the pure times. And the definition of the pure times would not necessarily fall into the dynasty numbers, but it's the middle times, the times before any conqueror or foreigner could become a pharaoh or become other belief systems spread here. A pure time meant that the Egyptian gods were still gods of love before any others came and intertwined themselves through hundreds of years in belief, before any foreigner come and would be part of their management or politics or lineage. We speak of the pure times, pure Egyptian times, and what they wrote upon the walls for you to see about how they lived or what they believed. You sit in a place right now that wants to talk to you about some hidden things that you don't hear much about, but it's everywhere. Count the pillars. And you will find almost exclusively that the Egyptians were glued to base 12 mathematics. And we have said this before, and although it is not in Egyptology, I will say to you again, there'll come a day when the elegance of base 12 mathematics will surface, and it won't be called the new math. It's going to be called the ancient math. I'll say this again. To any mathematician listening now, they will smile at this phrase. Elegant math reveals itself. And what we mean by that is that the patterns and the sequences of good mathematics start talking to you, and a good mathematician will see them and will smile. There'll be an aha. This sequence leads to this sequence, and oh my, take a look at this. The fractals that you find from biology to geometry and space will all talk about the 12 sides, the 6s, the 3s, the 4s. Seldom do you find 5s and 10s. Seldom. For the universe is made up in 6s and 3s and 4s, 12s, 18s. Count the pillars. You think that that is an accident. Count the priests and that which they felt were the sacred numbers. You think that was an accident. And you're not going to find 5s and 10s. And I present this channeling in this way right now as a warm-up to the elegance of this society. Indeed, it was the beginning. Indeed, there was ancient things and duality and all the things that you have and multiples of this or that. But dear ones, if you take a look at the core of an Egypt that was able to sustain itself with a God of benevolence, that's so important. Did you notice that this temple, as huge as it might be, echoes even the smallest that you've seen? Even the smallest ones. And the first thing you see is the two pillars created then for a space for the sun to rise. Here is a philosophy for you before I get to the main one. A philosophy that says that the sun rises every day just like you, and that it is a refreshing day. No matter what is going on in your life, the sun rises between the two pillars to say that God is smiling on you and things are fresh and they are new. And it's a benevolence, and it's symbology, and it's metaphoric. It's not a worship of the sun. Dear ones, the Egypt of then gave you metaphor after metaphor. So much on the walls that you see here are stories of energy, not necessarily even physical. The story of life for the upper and the lower Nile, a story of love of country, of benevolence. You don't find that, dear ones, in other places, not like this. Let me tell you something beautiful. For 30 years, I have been channeling, and you can call this a belief system if you wish, but it's not a system. It's the basic truth of the love of God. It's of what you would call the magic that the multidimensional energy of compassion contains. Something that right now is starting to be studied on this planet called the field and coherence. Measurable compassion. And the Egyptians knew it. I told you in this teaching for 30 years of one specific thing that I wanted you to remember from the beginning, that you are dearly loved. Oh, but there's more. Here is what I've told you again and again. Listen to this. For what I have told you again and again is written on these walls. Listen to this. You may live your life and you may never look at God or Spirit or the Creator or whatever you wish to call that source that is the essence of love. You may never look at it. You may walk your life too busy. You may walk around and say, well, I don't believe in these esoteric things. You may even say, I don't want to have a part of the belief systems or go to the church or the synagogue. You say, I'm apart for all those things. I'm a modern human today. I've got modern things today. And at the end of your life, I have told you this, that all of the time that you have spent ignoring the Creator has been looking at you with a hand out that says, take this anytime you want to, if you choose to. Free choice. In other words, you may not look at God, but God looks at you. And that every single human being is made in the image of love and walks this earth equal in that, with an equal chance to take the hand of the magic of love and find a better life. This has been the message of Cryon, 30 years. And then you come here and you realize that as they slowly unburied these structures from the sand, the pieces and the parts that you can read that were not obliterated by other belief systems tell you the same identical thing. The temples are all built in a protocol, dear ones, of large to small, of a straight line leading to the altar where only the Pharaoh goes, and perhaps a priest or two. A large place that would contain the commoners, but they could come in, not covered so that the sky would shine upon them. All of these things, metaphors to a God of light. The inner chambers became smaller and the priests more sacred, leading all the way to where only the Pharaoh could stand in a place and do something, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. And it just yells that there is a protocol, that the commoners cannot quite see inside because it's so sacred, and God is great and God is light. But God can always look at them. This was the philosophy, that each of them also had a bubble, a higher self, and we've told you that before. I have called it a higher self. They call it something else, but it's written on the walls. There is a self that is apart from the physical of every single human. And that self is the vehicle which carries the light that a human has to the next life, beyond the veil, after death. The metaphysics that I have been giving you for 30 years is exactly that. Could it be that as ancient as these were, that right up to the Pharaoh himself, or herself, knew these truths, and as the best they could would give that to them and all that were around them, right down to the commoner, who would then be told by the priests what happened inside. So what do you think happened inside? We sit inside, not quite at the altar, not quite at the small room which is sacred that the Pharaoh entered. What did he do? There are so many who don't study any of these things and said, well, they went in there and they had sacrifice and all of the things that pagans would do. What if I told you that what he did, I'd like to invite you to do someday? The Pharaoh recognized the Lord of Light, the magic of love. Whatever name it had and whatever type of God it had, the essence, the magic was Haika, was all through these gods. This was the magic. This was the lineage even of the gods. It was love. It was healing. This was part of the scenario of the God of light. And you can just see the Pharaoh and what he did. And I'm going to tell you, something that is not necessarily taught to the extent it should be. Dear ones, this place was built for music, but not the music that you think. It was built for tones, certain sonorities that were sung that meant something because they were all part of mathematics. If I told you that you started this particular tour in the Great Pyramid of Giza and that inside the king's chamber it was about tones and mathematics. Dear ones, the Pharaoh sang. He sang. One of the things that people in the courtyard listened for is sometimes the Pharaoh's strong voice could be heard because he didn't mumble. He sang as loud as he could about the Lord of Light in this place, blessing the life of the land, upper and lower, continuing the fertility of light. And although there was indeed a hierarchy of royalty, the royalty shared it. And indeed, perhaps in this particular place, only one man or woman could go and do something and talk to God. It was shared. And immediately, the Pharaoh would share it with the priests, and the priests would share it with the other priests, and those in the common areas would hear, the Lord of Light blesses you and Egypt and the land and will keep it alive and safe and beautiful and help you with guidance to the other side of the veil when death sometimes, eventually, will take you all. And I can just hear them saying, death has no sting. You're here for a little while, but the real truth is what happens beyond. And if you've heard that before, it's been from me, which tells about a beautiful creative source who knows your name and is light and who loves you dearly. Don't be surprised if an Egyptologist will read that on the walls. Because the Egyptians, even the ancient ones, even with the protocols of the gods, they knew it. They knew it. Now, what is missing here? I will tell you that music, tones, tonalities, and the mathematics of the sounds meant something. And in an elegant society that used these things, there had to be musical notation. Not all of it was simply orally taught, because there had to be a protocol that was taught in the temples. Musical notation, that is a way to inscribe music in a way that generation from generation would know what the notes were and how they were combined. Every elegant society had musical notation. So I will say to the Egyptologist, have you found some things that you cannot interpret, or you're uncertain, or are they a little too mystical perhaps to interpret properly? They might just be musical notation. Every elegant society also had that which respected its own history and the history before it. There had to be museums here, dear ones. And whether they were in the temples where they would belong or perhaps underground, they had their own museums. Sometimes archaeologists forget this And they dig down and they find things and they say, well, this had to belong to a certain time or an era, not understanding they had just broken into an inner chamber of the museum of an ancient. It's here as well. This society was elegant, a society that had medicine where they washed their hands so thoroughly they showed it on the walls as an indication that they understood there had to be something that later became germs. This is the elegance that we speak of the ancients. Not just that they had a God of love, but they used it. Indeed, not everything lasted. Indeed, things changed. But I wish to honor the elegance of the writings on the walls, of those times which were pure. A time when they said there is a God of light, and there's a magic of love and benevolence for all. Not judgment, not horror, but light. And that the temples were built so that you could look at them and realize that they worship the idea, the metaphysical idea that when the sun comes up every day, it's for you. And it represents a new life, a new beginning, a fresh start. It's early enough so that when you leave this place and get up, the sun will be coming up, and you will watch this. Part of the reason the time was shifted, and why this temple is built the way it is, a metaphor for new beginnings. Don't be fooled by the idea that old is something that didn't work. What if it was just the opposite? There's a lot here to learn. Take these things and use them and discern them for yourself. Do not be confused by the duality that you also see on the walls, for they were human beings, just like you. You would say you believe in a very loving God. Indeed, if they could look at your history, they might be confused as well. Look for the light here and celebrate what they had. Let the sun shine upon you this day in the very way that the architects of this temple intended it to, with the metaphor of good things and benevolence and hope and life for the land. And so it is.